Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this last day of the course for you to choose whether to migrate or to stay. Today, our focus is on pastoral care or pastoral orientation for the care of migrants and refugees. Before giving the floor to our first speaker, Father Aldo Scoda, I would like to remind for all of you that are interested in the online diploma in pastoral care of human mobility, you can find some information on the chat. We have posted the link. If you can share the screen and show you how it is possible, if you are interested, to send your request for information as well as for attestation. We are about to share the screen. Okay, it's in the chat. Here it is. And this is our page. The page is available in Italian, Spanish, and Portuguese as well. And down, if you scroll down the page, you can find all the information. Here, the form you can fill in and then send it. So we get back to our welcome greetings for our first day. And the focus of today is the pastoral orientation for the care of migrants and refugees. I will give the floor to our first speaker, Father Aldo Scoda. Father Scoda is member of the Congregation of the Missionaries of St. Charles, Calabrian. After completing his studies in philosophy and theology with a licentiate in Christian anthropology, he graduated in psychology at the Catholic University of the Sacred Heart and obtained a doctorate in pastoral theology at the Pontifical Lateran University in Rome. Father Scoda is professor of pastoral theology and human mobility at the Pontifical Lateran University. He is executive director of CIMI and director for Europe and Africa of the Scalabrini International Migration Network that we saw yesterday for advocacy and coordinates of the pastoral action on the Scalabrini Missionary Network. So thank you, Father Aldo, for talking about pastoral care for, of, and with migrants and refugees.
Thank you, Veronica. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to everyone who is connected in this intensive and interesting 4-day training on theology and pastoral care for migrants, refugees, victims of human trafficking, seafarers, and people, itinerant people, and even their families. Well, today I would like to share with you some elements which I think can help us focus better our pastoral action, concrete action in the field. And what I would like to share with you is some guidelines and some theological and pastoral fundaments for our practical and everyday work with migrants and refugees. And can you confirm that we see the other information? Everybody hears me and seeing the PowerPoint?
Yes, I can hear and I can
Okay,
see.
thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. Well, the first element that we have been discussing even these days is this characteristics of the human mobility, especially. Human mobility as a dynamic and structural phenomenon. We have been hearing about that all these days. First of all, migration is a dynamic and constantly evolving phenomenon. The migration is marked by important changes that periodically require a fresh analysis or refreshing our analysis or our way of dealing with the migration challenges, as well as with theories and analysis of migration as a phenomenon. So in order to understand the implications for the societies, for the church, and most important for migrants, people and their families themselves. We can also say that migrations have become an increasingly universal and structural phenomenon. It is present with an acceleration of changing in countries of origin. The countries of origin are changing, also as well as the countries of transit and destination. In the methods adopted to reach the dreamed destinations, there are many ways that people use somehow legal or illegal channels to go in the dreamed or wanted destinations countries, as well as in the social and religious role carried out in the context of settlement. The importance of the role of the migrants and migrations in reshaping the societies, the local communities, as well as the Christian communities. So the first and most important data that we can found from the phenomenological study of the migration is that migration is a dynamic and a structural phenomenon. And now I would like to use some words of Pope Francis to characterize better the migration phenomenon, as well as this characterizes has a direct implication for the pastoral work. Now, first thing is that global migration will continue to shape our future. That is very important. I mean, migration is not something that will end. It's not something concerning only one place, one community, one nation, one time, but it's something that is continuously present in our times. The second important thing is that more and more people are forced to leave. We heard it these days: conflicts, wars, environment disaster, climate change, persecution as well. So more and more people are forced to. Migration is for the most of the people not a free choice, it's a forced choice. Not only, migration has a direct link, and most of the causes are to be seen in the integral and sustainable development. We have a lack of integral and sustainable development in many areas of the world. And for last, this huge, important, up-to-date, the most important phenomenon that we are facing, like societies and church, can leave no one indifferent. That is one of the most important things, because the indifference is somehow, and sometimes in many societies, and unfortunately in many Christian communities, the way that we deal with the presence of migrants and refugees as well. So this phenomenon sometimes in this phenomenon is very important, the way how we deal with even in the pastoral care, in the pastoral. And one of the paradigms that we are using today, not only academic paradigms, but also action, political, as well as pastoral paradigm that we are using to deal with migration, is the paradigm of the emergence. What does it? First of all, I would like to share with you the meaning of this word that we are facing today. The migration crisis. Everywhere, every day, we are hearing about the migration. The global migration crisis was used for the first time in 1995 from Myron Wiener. The global migration crisis challenged the states and to human rights. In this book, he proposed this way of dealing with migrants. And this way, this theory, this word, global migration crisis, would soon become the new paradigm of interpretation and intervention on the phenomenon. The rhetoric of the crisis, amplified by mass communication and politics, was changing the perception of the globalization and multiculturalism, and was transforming the migrants and refugees into new targets of widespread social and identity new fields. This emergency paradigm applied to the migratory phenomenon has certainly not led to fair and effective solutions. We are testimonies of that every day, especially in host and transit communities. On the one hand, it simply exacerbated the inability to manage this phenomenon in the face of a dramatic increase in illegal channels and human trafficking. On the other, it slowed down, if not actually prevented, blocked the integration process in many communities. This, the construction of migration crisis affected all our communication, all our way of the perception, the analysis and action in the migration phenomenon. And that's why we have been talking, even this day, Professor Pollard noted this, migration has been a kind of mass distraction phenomenon. We read everywhere when people, politicians, analysts are talking about crisis, economical crisis, labor crisis. Usually they use the migrants and refugees as a kind of speech of mass distraction, as well as we have seen hate speech in the mass media or social media. There is also a communication that has altered the perception of the migration phenomenon and the migrants as well. This is because we read always negative stories concerning migrants and refugees. Electoral campaigns, migrants and refugees are used for electoral purpose. And all this bad communication, negative communication is and the basis for the creation of stereotype, prejudice, stigma, as well as discrimination. As well as we said, in many countries, especially in hosted or destination countries, we hear about the migration crisis as a kind of invasion, and all this kind of speech has consequences because the register is used is not the analytical register, but it's the emotional register, a kind of emotional communication. And we see the growth on xenophobia, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, and sometimes all this is connected with the need of the societies to have or to invent a scapegoat. In the other hand, this is the last point which I turn back again during my speech. In the other hand, sometimes the migrants and refugees are not, even if they are not seen like enemies, like invaders, they sometimes are seen as useful, poor, or needy. And so, even in this case, we have the issue of the social and relational power. All this perception, negative perception, this paradigm of emergency is a consequence of a real dramatic lack of governance of the migration phenomenon. And in our countries, even if they are departure, transit, and especially destination countries, this lack of governance of migration phenomenon is a global situation. And we see this lack of governance, even we can see it even in our countries, as because there is a difficulty to categorize the migration today. Because we speak today about mixed flows. Who is a migrant? Who is a refugee? Who is an asylum seeker? We have mixed flows of people, of categorizing, and this made also the government of this phenomenon not so easy. There is also a continued fluctuation in national decisions and weak global policies in the face of a massive human trafficking industry, as well as we experience in many places the failure of national, local policies increases perception of fear and danger. We have also a lack of recognition of fundamental human rights. We heard it yesterday. Sometimes, and this is very important, and we can experience it even in our places, sometimes what is to be recognized as a human right is given as an act of charity. As well as we have a difficult relationship between transnational phenomena, as migration is, and national sovereignty. There is an insufficiency or inadequacy of the national and international legislative framework we had today, the Geneva Convention, Dublin Agreement concerning Europe, etc. We experiment a kind of militarization of borders and the increased presence of armies in transit, especially in transit countries, for example, Niger. We have also the delocalization of the province, shifting the migratory pressure to the external borders. What we are doing in Europe, for example, with Turkey, Greece, with countries of North Africa, as well as moving the phenomenon of migration or the presence of migrants in the peripheries of the cities, of the countries, as well as diverting the attention of the public opinion. We have also a kind of increasing indifference to the causes and promotion of development models. We have a persistence of social, political, economical, environmental imbalances, conflicts, persecutions, relative well-being, cultural migration, human trafficking. There is a globalization of indifference, as Pope Francis says, and the culture of waste. There is a lack of solidarity in concrete actions with countries. There is also the criminalization of solidarity, for example, as has been with the NGOs in the Mediterranean Sea. There is the ethically of international cooperation and the risk of financing authoritarian regimes. The European Union is spending a lot of money to give to countries where is authoritarian regime to block the migration flows. How this can be ethical in preventing human trafficking as well as in protecting people according to the human rights. So countries of destination sometimes are bringing money, are investing money in countries of that a democratic state, or we can say authoritarian regimes. There is a tolerance of places where the rights and respect of human life are questioned or extremely violated. We hear many camps everywhere, Turkey, Libya, etc., where human rights are, and there is a tolerance on this basis. There is also fragmentation of analysis and intervention, sometimes focusing only on the negative consequences for the communities of destiny. All this lack of governance, phenomenological, political, social governance, and the increase of the perception of migration as a bad thing, as a negative thing, involves also the Christian community. What we are hearing today in many Christian communities is that also the church, also the Catholics are or think the same way of the social, of the public opinion. So even the Catholic communities in many countries, especially destination countries, is perceiving or is feeling this negative perception. And of course, even if the Catholic Church have or Catholic communities, they have this negative perception on migrants, refugees, and migration phenomena, they are not going to do nothing. Then what can we do to pass or to overcome this emergency paradigm that from a political, social emergency paradigm has become also a pastoral paradigm? We deal with migrants and refugees because there is a migratory pressure, because there is a migratory emergency of crisis. Now, what I would like to do today is to shift, to change this kind, to propose for changing this kind of paradigm. The pastoral renewal, do you have? Okay. The pastoral renewal says that work with migrants and refugees is the everyday work, not something concerning emergency or the crisis. Now, how can we do that? I propose here three movements or dynamics for pastoral renewal. The first one is the passage from ideology to theology. The second one is for an incarnational theology. And the third one is the performative dimension of the pastoral movement. First of all, we heard that there are several forms of interpretation of the migration phenomenon and of the people and communities involved. This crystallized into theories or system of theories that produce not only interpretation, but also social, political, cultural, and pastoral action. Instead of the ideology, we need to promote a theology of migration. The theological vision, biblically founded and expressed in a Christian anthropology and a prophetic eschatology of hope, becomes the background that guides the reflection and action of the Christian community. The common dignity of children of God and the common citizenship of the kingdom of God are the matters of this vision. Kuhlman, in his book, wrote that the Bible, from the migration of Abraham, and ultimately probably from Cain to the little one laid in the manger, is in its basic line a story of man leaving, migrating, seeking bread, land, and protection, wandering and returning. And among God's many commandments, only a few others equal in importance and clarity, those concerning the right of strangers and refugees. Secondly, for an incarnational theology, the Christian message is embodied and always contextualized. But incarnation, before being a process or a model of action, is above all an event. As Gaudium et Spes points out in number 22, the truth is that only in the mystery of the incarnate Word does the mystery of man take on light. And again, for by his incarnation, the Son of God has united himself in some fashion with every man. This statement underlines that pastoral care must necessarily come to terms with a complex personal, social, and cultural reality in communities to propose a pastoral action that, starting from a salvific event of Christ and thanks to the anthropological turning point that has welcomed a deep personal and social dynamics gives meaning to the challenges that this particular population must face daily. Barth, the theologian Barth, defines the incarnation as the way of the Son of God into a far country. He interprets the Christ event as a migration of God on earth in history and in the lives of the people. Theology goes back to the root and center of the truth about the concept of person as understood in the sacred scriptures, and in particular Genesis, in the chapter of creation. Man and woman are created in the image and likeness of God, which is not another label, something added, but is the true nature of the humankind. Defining man as imago Dei means overturning the perspective with which we also address the issue of migration. It means addressing human issues starting from the mystery of God and his presence in everyone, no matter where he or she comes from. According to Grudi, Daniel Grudi, part of the challenge that the theology of migration, as well as the action, pastoral action, has to face is precisely the cancellation of the divide created by labels. This is to challenge stereotypes by helping migrants to discover, first of all, their own inner strength that comes from being men and women with an inalienable dignity and subjects of rights rather than assuming an identity that is imposed on them from outside. Taking on a theological reading for the action in migration context means focusing not only on the migratory process itself, but above all on the protagonists and actors of this dynamic, who are the migrants themselves. Third, the performative dimension of the pastoral ministry, and we can say the performative dimension of the theology. If in the first point we are overcoming the many ideological perspectives on migration, and we are founding our action on a theological perspective, especially on the incarnation of theology, now we can say that theology is in itself action. There is a performative dimension in the theology. The gospel and the Christian message do not only have a descriptive value, but also a performative value. That is, they activate in the individuals and in the communities new energies of thought and action. The dynamics of going forth, Chiesa in uscita, present in the Word of God, which wants to provoke in the believers and in the community to take the initiative, get involved, and accompany. Being and building communities is then one of the consequences of the performative dimension. We are faced today with the weakening of relationships everywhere, with the weakness of social action, of institutions to respond effectively in the face of countless challenges. But there is also a need for a prophetic and performative task of the Christian community that becomes a topic. To make the communities all become more mission-oriented, to make ordinary pastoral activity on every level more inclusive and open, to inspire in pastoral workers a constant desire to go forth, and in this way to promote a positive response from all whom Jesus summons to friendship with himself. Pastoral ministry in a missionary key seeks to abandon the complacent attitude that says, we have always done it this way. Paul is saying, I invite everyone to be bold and creative in this task of rethinking the goals, structures, styles, and methods of evangelizing in their respective communities. A proposal of goals without an adequate communal search for the means of achieving them will inevitably prove illusory. The important thing is not to walk alone in a wise and realistic pastoral discernment. Lanza, a pastoral theologian, in an Italian book, wrote, the awareness of the epochal modification of the mentality and of the religious experience must lead to the internalized conviction of a shift in the very center of the ecclesial action and of the consequent renewal of all its forms and structures in a missionary perspective. From being self-referential and concentrated in the shadow of our so many bell towers, where they are, the pastoral action has to assume a missionary style and modality. Not, and that is very important, not as an exceptional or emergency event, but as a habitual style, as normality and a daily dimension. Ordinary pastoral ministry does not match with what is done and is done ordinarily, nor could it be predefined on the basis of some deducible principles. But it is constructed, made here and now in relation to the concrete situation. Now, how can we launch some perspective of action in the pastoral care? So how can we concretely translate in our pastoral activities these three movements, from ideology to theology, or incarnational theology, and the performative dimension of theology and pastoral? Well, I would like to focus on four purposes. Okay. I would like to give a purpose of these four dimensions where we can focus our pastoral work. The first focus is the anthropological Christian turning point of pastoral ministry. Focus ourselves on people. The second point is the paradigm of the integral ecology, as pointed by Pope Francis. The third point is the church generated from the people. And the fourth one, the intercultural challenge. First, the anthropological Christian turning point of pastoral care. Paul VI defined the church as an expert on humanity in 1967 in his encyclical Populorum Progress. John Paul II, delivering his first encyclical Redemptoris Hominis, defined the man as the primary route that the church must travel in fulfilling her mission. Benedict XVI, in Deus Caritas, said, we all have the same fundamental motivation and look towards the same goal, a true humanism, which acknowledges that man is made in the image of God and wants to help him to live in a way consonant with that dignity. Pope Francis, in Fratelli Tutti, is stressing that the church's role, it does not relegate its mission to the private sphere, he affirms. It does not stand on the margins of society, and while not engaging in politics, nevertheless does not renounce the political dimension of existence. Indeed, attention to the common good and concern for integral human development concern humanity, and everything human concerns the church, according to the gospel principle. So when we deal in the concrete pastoral action with migrants, refugees, human trafficking, seafarers, their families, we have to go from the basics, start from this anthropological and Christian religion. Secondly, we are in our pastoral work, we have to be led by this integral ecology paradigm that Pope Francis wrote in his Laudato Si. Since everything is closely interrelated, and today's problems call for a vision capable of taking into account every aspect of the global crisis, I suggest that we now consider some elements of an integral ecology, one which clearly respects its human and social dimension. From a conceptual point of view, Pope Francis takes the term ecology not in the generic and often superficial meaning of some green concern, but in the much deeper one of an approach to all complex systems whose understanding requires foregrounding the relationship of the individual parts among themselves and with the whole. The reference is to the image of the ecosystem. Integral ecology thus becomes a paradigm capable of bringing together environmental phenomenon problems with issues that are not normally associated with the ecological agenda, strictly speaking, of the term, such as livability, demography, migration, economics, urban planning, etc. Third, for a church from and generated from people. In a historical excursus of mission, the Swiss theologian Buhlmann speaks of the third church as a new age that we are living, in which the Christian community finds itself and a new migration of the people of God. He recalls how in the first millennium, the community and theological pastoral reflection were largely influenced by the Eastern churches, First Church, as well as later in the second millennium, the gravitational center had shifted to the West, Second churches. The third millennium that we are living is characterized by polycentrism, and in particular with the flourishing of cultures and populations that for various historical or political reasons had remained on the margins of the global policies, such as many countries, African, Asian, or Latin American continent. The third church, thus, characterized the de facto, the passage of Christianity as a truly world and Catholic religion, driven to confront countless new situations. In a certain sense, this third church is even more perceived thanks to the phenomenon of the globalization and migration as well. Let me go to some conclusions to respond to how this new pastoral renewal, passing from the paradigm of emergency to the paradigm to the theological paradigm, is important for us. We need to come out from the myth of emergency and provisionally to take on cultural diversity as the paradigm of the church, which requires cross-cultural planning and pastoral and missionary action that is continuous and structural and no longer temporary or special. The presence of people of foreign origin provides a valuable opportunity to rethink one's own cultural, relational, organizational, ecclesial, and pastoral models, and to challenge them with a critical and constructive interpretation. Intercultural pastoral action needs intercultural education and training, a broader process of renewal of the theory and practice of education training that is necessary for everyone, especially for the new generations of pastoral agents in the world of complexity and globalization. An educational process where curiosity and openness to different cultures forms are not mere gestures of welcome, but important skills to deal with social and ecclesial complexity and multiculturality. Much pastoral care is characterized by acting for migrants, doing something for them. Also important is the perspective of what migrants can say and do for the church and the society. However, both of these perspectives, although important and complementary, have an imbalance of power, of relationship, of vision, of decision-making, and of action. The challenge for the pastoral today and for every community is to act with migrants, with refugees, as this puts us on the same level, co-responsible for the present and the future to be built. No one must be excluded. God's plan is essentially inclusive and gives priority to those living on the existential peripheries. Building the future with migrants and refugees means recognizing and valuing how much each of them can contribute to the process of construction. And we can do this in many areas, in many places, in our action and pastoral action. Synodal path that we have been building or living now, our dioceses and parishes, the participation and the leadership of the migrants and refugees in the pastoral organization, the catechesis and catechism, the youth and family ministry, etc. What we need, as Pope Francis, and this is my conclusion, is to initiate processes and not just occupy spaces. God manifests himself in historical revelation, in history. Time initiate processes and space crystallize them. God is in history, in the process. We must not focus on occupying the spaces where power is exercised, but rather on starting long-run historical process. This new pastoral challenge with migrants and refugees is a time of starting a new process. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Father Aldo, for your analysis of pastoral theology and some perspective for action. And now we want to move forward with our next speaker, Andrea Mattesani, as a member of the Sovereign Military Order of Malta, graduated in political science and international relations at the Catholic University of the Southern Part of Milan. He also has a master's degree in business management for the Regent's University in London. Choosing the Universal Church over the private sector, he first served the permanent mission of the Holy See at the United Nations Office in Geneva. He joined in the Migrants and Refugees section of the Holy See in September 2018, where he coordinated the research office until January 2023. And with the integration of the section within the Dicastery for Promoting Integrative and Development of the Holy See, he became a member of the research section, where he is responsible for migration, refugees, and human trafficking. He also serves as external advisor for the Foreign Affairs Office of the Order of Malta regarding migration, human trafficking issues in the digital world, and human rights. Mr. Marchesani will guide us through the pastoral orientation. Thank you.
Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. Good afternoon, sisters. I just said before, wherever you are. And it's a pleasure and an honor for me to be here today. I hope you hear me well. So if in- so today I will go through the document that at that time the migrants and refugee section published. So this is why I chose the color of the section, the colors of the dicastery, where the section now is fully integrated since January this year. And we can go to the next. Thank you. So just a brief introduction, not maybe because you know what the mission of the dicastery is, but just to ground the pastoral orientation process within the same model of working of the dicastery and the same model of working before of the section. So if the mission of the dicastery is to be at the service of the Holy Father, of the bishops, broadly understood, so the local churches or the pastoral agents, the Catholic congregation and orders and Catholic organizations, with their hand to promote individual human development, and so the common good and all the social teaching of the church. Therefore, the dicastery and the section before used a model of working that is grounded in listening and dialoguing with the Catholic realities from the local churches to the organization, and after to reflect and having research and discern, so transforming the concerns of the local churches of the Catholic congregation in issues and to study them, and after giving appropriate and effective response to them, of course, aim to the individual human development and the common good promotion. So these are the verbs of our action before the section on the dicastery in the research section. So and that involves, of course, the other section, like listening and dialogue is the section, the first section of the dicastery is dedicated, is devoted to this. And so we visit a liminal with bishop as a consultation with bishops, Catholic congregation and Catholic organizations. And after is the turn is around for the research section to reflect and discern what the dicastery listen to, and to propose and support effective pastoral response that like the pastoral orientation I'm going to talk today, also projects, really concrete projects, and a part of that is an attachment of the pastoral orientation, the sharing of good practices. So these are our main partners, as you know, a lot of them, but of course we have the bishops and several Catholic organizations that depend on this dicastery and other Catholic organizations that belong to other religious orders or congregations. So the consultation process is that gave the birth to this to the pastoral orientation we are going to see today was really linear and simple, and we focused a team that sometimes the team was from the Pope, that he in his meetings with the bishops and local churches association, it was expressed in this pastoral concern, a particular pastoral concern, like in the case of the message of this year, right not to immigrate is a case. And so listening local churches and also for us in observing reality and studying reality. So after focus the team, we start to prepare a background paper to try to link the team, the object of the pastoral consultation with the magisterium and with the gospel. So going back to study what the Catholic Church, the Holy See already said about that. And for instance, in the case of the message of this year, of the right not to migrate, we found that already Pope Leo XIII, 200 years ago, already said something about it. And after that, we had the first consultation with Catholic Congregational Organization, the main partner I told you before. And from there, we arrived with the first draft. From this first draft, we organized a second consultation with the bishops. And from normally the bishops that lead the migrants and refugees pastoral ministry in their dioceses. Sometimes it is try to consult with many bishops from worldwide. Sometimes we decide a particular area where this pastoral concern is really important or really focused. So after that, we arrive with the second draft, and we have a second consultation with the Catholic Congregational Organization. On there, really simple, we have a final draft, and we are trying to present in this consultation a scheme of challenges and responses. So we ask, what are the main challenges for the Catholic Church with regard with the team, like the right not to immigrate, like human trafficking, like internal displaced people or other, and what are the response? The general response, and after we ask also for good practices to be fair later on. So after the final draft, we have our internal revision and the revision of the Secretary of State for publication, also to avoid incorrect and problematic wording for the Catholic social teaching and to have a consistency. So from these consultations, we are not, and the result of this consultation that are the pastoral orientation are not unilateral recommendation from the Holy See, but this is a listening to the local churches to understand what is happening in their dioceses, in their pastoral territories. And as Father Aldo said before, it's not already constructed product and we say the way you should do things in local churches and in the Catholic congregation, but we give this pastoral orientation as guidelines, and they should be adapted to your situation. And all these pastoral orientation are integrated in the message of this papacy and the message of the magisterium. As you can see in several pastoral orientation, we will find that we are quoting many previous popes, and so the magisterium, and also other documents from the former pastoral council for Pontifical Council for Migrants and Itinerants that was there before the migrants and refugees section. So and this is according to this idea that these are guidelines and not unilateral recommendation, is in line with the Catholic social teaching, the principle of subsidiarity, as where someone on a direct, with more direct link and presence in a place should act, and we will only stand as a support. So the local churches can indeed develop and take the pastoral orientation issues and points, not taking not all of them, maybe only taking the more appropriate for the reality. So here we have the five documents. Only four of them are the name is pastoral orientation, but I'm counting also the documents we prepared on for the global compact because they have inside the 20 pastoral action points. And I will go through that in a moment. So we have these five. So the first was 2018, the document on the global compacts on migrants and refugees. The year later, the pastoral orientation on human trafficking, the pastoral orientation on internal displaced people, the pastoral orientation on climate displaced people, and the pastoral orientation on intercultural and migrant ministry. As you can see in the left corner, we have the five languages that were the main five languages of work of the section. So we have these in five languages, but we also had several local churches request to translate the pastoral orientation in several languages, as you can see. So many languages and was of huge work because we considered the revision wasn't easy of the language you do not know. So starting with the first, so the 20 pastoral action points, we can see that this was divided in structure according to the four verbs, because these the four verbs that Pope gave us for the pastoral ministry with migrants and refugees, so welcome, protect, promote, and integrate. And in the document, there is not only the 20 pastoral action points, but also the word, the message for the world, the 51st message for the World Day of Peace of the Pope, and also some action point for the global compact. So this is a parallel work of pastoral and advocacy. We got pastoral and also an advocacy document, and because this is interconnected as the dioceses, the bishops, the episcopal conferences, the religious congregation, they live in a place, in a state, and their duty is also to engage and advocate for migrants or refugees. So really the two parts of the document, the advocacy part and the pastoral part, are really interconnected, as we have on both sides. We talk about the family integrity, the integrity of family, reunification, the protection of unaccompanied minors, and to promote routes, legal routes of access, to avoid also the problem, the main and huge issue of trafficking, the principle of non-refoulement, and the access to education, welfare, basics and basic services, and the integration model and ideas. So I think I would say that the two key words for this document are engage and advocacy. So engage in the pastoral work and engage in advocacy with governments, with civil society. So is a first, let's say that this fits perfectly in as first stone of the strategy of the migrants and refugee section as first document. So next please. So in 2019, we organized a very big conference in Sacropano. It was a very big consultation. I think it was the biggest consultation we had for a document. There were more than, I think, almost 400 participants. So these are really the results of that consultation. And here there is a different approach. There are not the four-verb structure, but we try to the key word of this document is raise awareness to broaden the definition of human trafficking. As in the Palermo Protocol, we only know about trafficking as something that is border crossing. And also there is another perspective of broadening the definition as for the international community, the definition of trafficking doesn't contemplate many other aspects of this phenomenon that for the Catholic social teaching and for the Catholicism of the Catholic Church, already when we have commodification of the human person, we have trafficking. So, and the other point of this document is that is focused on set of victims, and you know better than me how to do that on the field. And so awareness, broad definition, and the focus on victims. And so after that, in 2020, we have developing the pastoral orientation on internally displaced people that is still structured with the 4 verbs. And here we also we can say that awareness and advocacy are the 2 keywords, as this document is a pastoral document, but as a really strong political meaning, as the internally displaced people are their rights are not codified anywhere internationally or domestically, as to have displaced people within a country means that there are problems in that country, and no country wants to accept that or to make it in plain sight. So this document is a call to act and to stand up for the dignity of these people, and to act. And the best way is the cooperation among Catholic actors and also with non-Catholic actors and civil actors to tutelate the dignity of the internally displaced people. So the last document, graphic problem, but it's the pastoral orientation on climate displaced people, and this was a very huge work. And as you've seen, there are many more chapters of the comparison with the other document. And so the first point is the awareness of the nexus between the climate crisis, and in this case we can call it crisis and having an emergency approach, and displacement. But of course, the climate crisis can make the displacement, the human mobility can create an emergency, as there is a lack of action and a lack of attention to the common form, as Pope Francis many times denounced. So briefly, and a very important part of this document was the attachment of the good practices, as I think we are here to maybe to change the world, but to change the world is we can do that with more steps. So maybe we cannot influence the policies, the national global agenda on the climate, but what we can do is to enhance and to act with very concrete projects. And so in this good practice collection, we identified many projects enhanced and implemented by local churches and Catholic congregations and organizations, and really a project, for instance, of training in agriculture can influence and change a place, an incarnate place on this planet. So, and can make the difference. And I would like to link here to the message of the Pope of the World Day of Migrants or Refugees this year, that is about the right not to emigrate, so the freedom to choose whether to migrate or not, to stay. And this is one of the first causes, and this is one of the most forced causes that oblige people to flee, to abandon the home, as there is no future in a place where there's no water anymore, or the climate phenomena are more and more violent. So, next, please. So the last pastoral orientation that we prepared in the migrants refugee section, that was last year, so was really our last document as section, is about the pastoral orientation on intercultural migrant ministry, and this was in line also with the following message of the Pope on building the future with migrants and refugees, because this is a more general part of building the future with the social integration, with the promotion, but we have also to look at in our tent to look in the church. And so this document has a double nature of is ad extra and ad intra document. So ad intra looking into the church, how we are managing this building the future with migrants and refugees within the church, and also ad extra, so outside, how we can impact, how we can act, how we can cooperate and advocate for migrants and refugees. So in this document, the structure is different, and we have several chapters. So acknowledging and welcoming fear, that is these are the challenges that the local churches, the congregation, the organization told us about, how to really have a intercultural reality within the church. So we have here, and we have to understand how complex the phenomenon of human mobility is. We have to promote encounter, and so before Father Aldo was talking about the culture of care against the culture of waste, throwaway culture, and promoting encounter. This is the way to find that, and to found that culture there, and to promote the culture. So, and listening and being compassionate is the third chapter that asks for involvement of the community, of the Catholic community, involvement in activities with migrants and refugees, to listen to them and to listen to their story. The fourth is about focusing more about the multiplicity, diversity within the differences of way to be a Catholic, in the sense that we have different cultures where the Catholic faith was inculturated, and so we suggest, and the local churches suggest how to involve and how to make participate migrants or refugees in the liturgy and in the life of a parish, and also giving training to migrant priests and to priests from the community to praise and to praise this reality. And the fifth chapter is linked to this one, of course, because from this we can understand how the migrant and refugees can be a blessing for a community, and of course for vocation, of course for the pastoral life, for the parish life. And meanwhile, the sixth chapter is more, the two last chapter are more ad extra, outside part of the document. So from having the migrants and refugees with us, within our tent, within our church, we can work with them for evangelizing also outside the Catholic community. Also reaching easily the other migrants for the same country where they come from. And also the seventh chapter is about an extra action, so outside action, and it's about cooperation and advocacy, and to work together with other religions and with other actors, always to build the future with migrants and refugees. So so in the during our work for developing the pastoral orientation, we start also to produce the attachment, collecting the good practices. And this is a parallel project to the pastoral report that some of you could be aware of, where we try to collect in 4 regions worldwide the good practices, the projects implemented by the local churches about the pastoral of the migrant ministry. And so the idea of this good practices is just founded also in the Dicaster mission, is to create a network to help the local church, to support the local churches how to better or to discover new ways for the migrant pastoral ministry. And this is a brief collection of projects where that you can find on our website, this attachment of the pastoral orientation, where every Catholic organization, congregation, order, or other dioceses can grab experience and ideas to act and to face challenges they are experiencing on their territory and to find inspiration. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to Andrea Marchettani for his presentation on the pastoral orientation. And as usually in this case, before moving forward with the third speaker, we will have a 15 minutes break. So we'll see you in 15 minutes. Thank you. Hello, welcome back for the last part of this training course. Can you all hear me? Okay. So the next presentation, or the next two presentations, I have to say, are focused on the best practice. And we have with us Sister Marida Santos from New York. She's joining us from New York. And Sister Marida Santos is a missionary sister, servants of the Holy Spirit. And she is an accountant by profession and works among marginalized communities, particularly indigenous peoples in the Philippines. She functioned as the executive secretary of the South Central Luzon Catholic Bishop Conference of the Missionary Sister Servants of the Holy Spirit Congregational Communication, of the Philippine Episcopal Commission on Indigenous People. And she's serving as the Congregational Communication Coordinator based in Rome, Italy. Currently, she is part of the executive team of the BIBAT International in New York. And her areas of advocacy at the United Nations focus on women and girls, migrants and refugees, poverty, eradication, and financing for development. Sister, thank you for being with us.
Yes, hello everyone. Greetings from the United Nations headquarters in New York City, where at present world leaders gather for the UN General Assembly to discuss world issues. I am happy and grateful to be here with you to share about our mission and ministry. So let me share my screen now. And right away, I will start the presentation. Let me introduce to you Vivat International and what we do at the United Nations. Vivat International is a non-governmental organization with a membership of more than 16,000 from 12 Catholic religious congregations working in 120 countries to promote human rights through advocacy at international and local levels. Vivat International has special consultative status with the Economic and Social Council of the United Nations, or ECOSOC, and is associated with the United Nations Department of Global Communications, or DGC. Vivat was founded in the year 2000 and received its special consultative status with ECOSOC in the year 2004. Vivat was founded by the Missionary Sisters Servants of the Holy Spirit, where I belong, and the Society of the Divine Word, our brother congregation. In the past 23 years, 10 other congregations joined us as members. Congregation of the Holy Spirit, or the Spiritans, Congregation of the Adorers of the Blood of Christ, Missionary Sisters of the Holy Rosary, Missionary Oblates of Mary Immaculate, Comboni Missionary Sisters, Comboni Missionaries of the Heart of Jesus, Little Sisters of the Assumption, Congregation of the Missionary Sisters of St. Charles Borromeo, or the Scalabrinian Sisters, Sisters of the Holy Cross, and the Congregation of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. This is the United Nations system, which I'm not going to discuss in detail. I just want to show you how big and complex is the UN. It has 6 principal organs, a number of subsidiary organs, functional commissions, departments, and offices. Out of the 195 total countries in the world, 193 are members of the UN. The Holy See, or the Vatican, and Palestine are not members. There are 4 UN headquarters and duty stations located in New York, USA, Geneva, Switzerland, Vienna, Austria, and Nairobi, Kenya. VIVAT has representations in New York, Geneva, and Nairobi. We have 2 representatives in New York, 1 in Geneva, and 1 in Nairobi. New York is the seat of the General Assembly, UN Secretariat, ECOSOC, the Security Council, and the UN Women, among others. Geneva is where the Human Rights Council conducts its sessions, and in Nairobi, the UN Environment Assembly. The Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDG, is like the heartbeat of the UN at this particular time. The 17 goals were adopted by all UN member states in 2015 as part of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which set out a 15-year plan to achieve the goals. Today, progress is being made in many places, but overall, action to meet the goals is not yet advancing at the speed or scale required. To date, only 15% of the goals are on track, while others even backtrack. The focus areas of Vivat International are on poverty eradication, women and children, sustainable development, culture of peace, and climate action. Let me share with you how Vivat brought the prophetic voices to the United Nations. These are some interventions at the UN in Geneva and New York, which we made on behalf of our members on the ground at the grassroots. The first that I will share with you is from Vivat Spain.
Soy Pilar Trillo, hermanita de la Asunción y miembro de Vivat International España, formado por 8 congregaciones religiosas. España es parte de la frontera sur de la Unión Europea. Los migrantes llegan a nuestras costas arriesgando sus vidas en dificultosas travesías del Océano Atlántico o el Mar Mediterráneo. Muchos de ellos mueren en el trayecto. A su llegada, se les incoa un expediente de expulsión y son encerrados en los llamados Centros de Internamiento de Extranjeros, los CIES. Durante este tiempo de detención se intenta la repatriación de estos migrantes a sus países de origen. Sin embargo, en la práctica, después del máximo de 60 días que establece la ley, muchos de ellos son liberados, y esto es particularmente cierto para quienes proceden de países subsaharianos. Después de recoger evidencias de esta situación, Vivat España, junto con otras 2 asociaciones, Casa de Todos y Asociación Caribú, presentó un informe al EPU de España en 2020, en la sede de Naciones Unidas en Ginebra. En dicho informe recomendamos el emplazamiento de los migrantes en recursos de acogida humanitaria, en lugar de los actuales CIES. Sin embargo, no basta con escribir el informe, 2 miembros de Vivat España viajaron a Ginebra en diciembre de 2019 para realizar acciones de lobby sobre este tema entre los representantes de los diferentes países participantes en el EPU. El resultado superó ampliamente nuestras expectativas. 3 países, Afganistán, Honduras y Filipinas, se hicieron eco de nuestra propuesta en sus recomendaciones. Todo esto no habría sido posible sin la estrecha colaboración de la oficina de Vivat en Ginebra. Esta cooperación ejemplifica bien los esfuerzos de actuar localmente y pensar globalmente. Aunque España rechazó aceptar nuestra recomendación, en la práctica el Gobierno ha cambiado el funcionamiento de los CIES. En la actualidad, solo en raras ocasiones los migrantes subsaharianos son retenidos en estos centros.
The second case is from Vivat Indonesia.
Hello everyone, it is nice to meet you here in this online meeting. I am Genevieve da Costa Amaral. You may call me Geno. I am originally from East Timor and I am belong to the Holy Spirit Missionary Sisters or SSPS. In 2017, I was assigned to Vivat Indonesia Mission here in Jakarta. This special occasion, I am gladly to share with you about our mission here in Vivat Indonesia, especially dealing with the issues of migration and human trafficking. Dear sisters, Vivat Indonesia has several issues of concern, as shown in this screen. The issue of women and children, human rights and business, human trafficking, migrant workers, environment, especially mining and geothermal, the issue of indigenous people, and death penalty. All of these issues are in line with the goals of the SDGs, leave no one behind. Aware of the rampant of the issues of migration and human trafficking in Indonesia, especially in East Nusa Tenggara, accordingly, in the last 6 years, we focused more on the issues of migrant, human trafficking, and violence against women and children. Now let's see some data on migrant workers and human trafficking. First, data from World Bank. In 2017, there were 9 million Indonesian migrant workers who work overseas. Among of them, there were 5 million workers who undocumented. The situation is very dangerous because they easily become victims of exploitation and human trafficking. This fact really happened to Indonesian migrant workers. Every year, Indonesia receives the coffins or the dead body of migrant workers, on average hundreds of victims per year. In 2018, there were 105 victims. 2019, 119 victims. 2020, 87 victims. And 2021, there were 121 victims. Second, migrant workers from East Nusa Tenggara who sent back to Indonesia in that condition. In the last 5 years, 2017 to 2021, migrant workers from East Nusa Tenggara were sent back to Nusa Tenggara, at least 657 people. In 2022, there were 106 victims. All of them work in Asian countries. They are illegal workers and are suspected of being victims of human trafficking. This number does not include those who buried in overseas countries. This figure disfigured places is Nusa Tenggara in the fifth largest provinces, which contributes to the number of Indonesian migrant workers. In this year, 2023, from January to early August, there were 86 victims from East Nusa Tenggara. In dealing with the issues of migration and human trafficking, we, as Viva GPIC's team, committed to eradicate these modern crimes by organizing various activities, such as lobby and advocacy on cases and regulations. We do lobby and advocacy at regional, national, and international level. We raise issues that going on in the society and encourage the government to create regulations or policies that favor to the society or the vulnerable one. Awareness raising by organizing socialization, seminars, training on related issues for various groups from the villages to the province and capital. Victim assistance. Our GPICs receive reports from the victims or their family and providing shelter, giving an intensive assistance for healing assistance and legal assistance, providing capacity or skill building. Actions. When our voices are ignored by stakeholders, we hold peaceful actions through campaigns and demonstrations to demand justice for those who are harmed. Community empowerment. We empower the families of migrant workers, local communities, farmer migrants, and refugees to function their land and improve their skills to produce something that generates income to improve the family economy. The Indonesian migrant workers have often been exploited in foreign countries. Exploitation and maltreatment are still going on even today, especially in Malaysia. They are also the subject of human trafficking. Vivat International Indonesia, GPIC groups, and other organizations have been working to address this issue at the local, national, and international levels. Vivat International raised the issue through the human rights mechanism in Geneva. On March 14, 2018, Paul Rahmat delivered a joint statement during the 37th sessions of the Human Rights Council. It highlighted the issue of human trafficking in Indonesia and Malaysia, especially focusing on the poor working condition of Indonesians in Malaysia. In November 2018, Vivat International and other organizations submitted to the 31st session of the Universal Periodic Review a joint report on the human rights violations in Malaysia. The report addressed the situation of migrant workers who are facing multiple cases of abuse and are often victims of trafficking for labor exploitation. In the second cycle of the Universal Periodic Review of Malaysia, the member states gave 11 recommendations concerning the issue of human trafficking and migrant workers. As an outcome of the UPR, Malaysia accepted 10 recommendations in full and 1 in part. In the 40th session of the Human Rights Council, Andre Ocha delivered a joint oral statement referring to the previous UPR submissions on Indonesian migrant workers in Malaysia and on trafficking in persons. Vivat International welcomed the UPR outcome and acceptance of most of the recommendations. However, there is still much concern about this situation. Furthermore, Andrew Ocha delivered a joint oral statement to draw the attention of the special reporter on trafficking in persons to the cases of human trafficking and exploitation of migrant workers in Malaysia who are coming from the East Nusa Tenggara province of Indonesia. The statement was made by Vivat International and Franciscan International with the support of Vivat International Indonesia and the Evangelical Church of Timor.
And the third one is from our members in Sudan and South Sudan.
Good afternoon. I am Maria Lourdes Santos, representing Vivat International, a non-governmental organization with consultative status with ECOSOC. And yesterday was the World Refugee Day, and with 10 other NGOs, we issued a statement regarding how the refugees are being affected by this prolonged conflict in Sudan. We all know already that there are many refugees in Sudan, and other refugees coming from neighboring countries are also coming in, like the Eritrean people who are also trying to flee from their own country. And as they arrive in Sudan, they are forced to run to other countries because of this conflict, and for example, to South Sudan. And the subhuman condition that they are experiencing because of the prolonged conflict. And just since yesterday is the World Refugee Day, maybe I can read part of our statement that as we observe the World Refugee Day yesterday under the theme Hope Away from Home, it is critical to hold a ceasefire in Sudan without delay and take care of the rights of refugees in compliance with international humanitarian law, refugee law, and human rights law. And maybe I can ask our panelists, how are they, in their knowledge, are they responding to the plea of these refugees that are really affected by the conflict in Sudan?
Thank you for that question. Is there any of the panelists that would like to respond to that question? Yeah. Yes, Dr. Sami.
Okay, thank you. I chose these issues to share with you because it's relevant to the group. We have many issues that we are presenting at the United Nations, especially at this time on climate, indigenous issues, mining, and all that. But these are just some of the issues that we are tackling at the United Nations. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Sister Maridet. And also we want like to thank you, Sister Genoveva, that we saw her in the video for co-creating the video. She is also a member of the Missionary Sister Servants of the Holy Spirit, and she is director of the Vivat International Indonesia. And now we move to the case of Hong Kong with the Sister Mary Corazon de Mitillo, that belong to the congregation of Our Lady of Charity of the God Shepherd. She is an educator by profession, and she served in various Good Shepherd ministries like residential care to children, young adults and women in crisis, education ministry as a teacher, guidance counselor and administrator, and in the formation of religious laity. Sister, thank you for being with us.
Let me share my screen. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to share with you our pastoral care to migrants and asylum seekers by the Catholic Diocese of Hong Kong, China. So I titled this as Journeying with Migrants. When I refer to migrants, I will focus more on the migrant domestic workers and also some asylum seekers in communion, participation, and mission. Let me share with you a short background of the pastoral care to situate you with the practices that we do. The influx of foreign domestic workers from the Philippines in the 1970s and 1980s called for spiritual and pastoral care. You see the many migrant workers coming to Hong Kong, mostly they are women. Conflicts, natural disasters, and more simply, the impossibility of living a dignified and prosperous life in one's native land forced millions of persons to live, according to Pope Francis' message. So in Hong Kong, in August of this year, there is a total of 348,276. Before COVID, it reached more than 400,000. So 56% are Filipinos, 41% Indonesians, and the other 3% from Thailand, India, Myanmar, and other African countries. We have registered asylum seekers of 12,000. The rest, the other 2,000 are not registered. In 2018, the Esperidian Global Information Company, in partnership with Enrich, an NGO, conducted a research, and they revealed that the foreign domestic workers' contribution to Hong Kong economy has reached 12.6 billion US dollars, which is 3.8% of gross domestic products. Why is Hong Kong very attractive place for foreign domestic workers? First, the proximity to the place of origin, higher monthly salary compared to other countries. Now it's 4,720. And we are advocating to reach it to 6,010. They have a paid 1 day off a week, 7 to 14 days annual leave with pay, with free flight ticket and travel allowance. They enjoy 13 statutory holidays and also long service pay as long as they have a 4 years continuous work or contract with the same employer, the medical insurance, and also the live-in and live-out arrangement. But why? Why more sufferings for them, since they are the backbone of the Hong Kong economy? Especially for those who are in the live-in arrangement. They work for long hours, non-stop, from 12 to 16 hours, with less food, rest, and sleep. They are allowed to rest only for 15 minutes. That is their lunch break. So, for those who are live-in, they suffer more from verbal, physical abuse, sexual harassment. They most often they got sick and depressed and also suffer from mental breakdown, especially if these psychological sufferings is coupled with a problem in with their own families, especially the husbands who found another woman because they cannot stand to be away from their wives. Okay, so in Hong Kong, because of a little place, the migrant workers have no decent place to spend during day off, especially during Saturdays and Sundays. So any shady place, be under the trees, in the park, under the bridge, under the stairs, or any pathwalk they are there on their day off. So more and more are being pre-terminated by their employers. Some are good reasons because they will be relocated or they lack more funds to support them or their ward died. But many have been terminated with no reason at all. So this gives us the high cost of working here in Hong Kong. Now, what are the best practices in our pastoral care? Number one, the strong support of the Catholic Diocese of Hong Kong. It is already in the structure of the diocese. One is the Diocesan Commission for Pastoral Services to Migrants, headed by our own bishop, now Cardinal-elect Stephen Chow. And all the chaplains of the different nationalities of migrant workers, the directors and representatives of other associations, like the Association of the Major Superiors of Women, the chaplains of the prison ministry, and yours truly. We meet quarterly and discuss issues, and we also discern together the best response we can give to the migrants. Second is the Diocesan Pastoral Center for Migrants, which was offered to them. And this served as the home away from home. Any migrants who needs help, who have no place to stay or needing any assistance or having difficulty, they are welcome anytime in the pastoral centers. We just need a lot of listening. So the center becomes a life-giving place to rest, distress, psychosocial spiritual formation, counseling, religious services, celebrations, source of support. They also enjoy outreach activities. And we provide trainings for their empowerment, also a preparation for them to decide whether to go home and find something to earn. So for example, we teach them budgeting, financial management, handling small entrepreneurship, or training on cooking, baking, even for dressmaking and others. So the Philippine government, through the overseas workers, they also provide initial capital for them as long as they are qualified. The third is the inclusion of migrant workers in parish communities. At present, about 80% of the parishes have welcomed migrant workers, especially during day offs on Sunday. So they are actively involved in the liturgical celebrations, and they become the altar servers, the commentators, the choir, the lectors, and other activities in the parish. So it's good also for their cultural integration with the locals. So now, some of the English communities, we call them, are being part of the parish council already. Second, we consider as our best practice, but we provide shelters for the distressed migrant workers. These are the terminated contract workers, victims of physical, sexual, verbal abuse, human trafficking, the scams, those who are sick, those with police, labor, immigration, or court cases, even those released from detentions or prisons. So we provide 3 shelters: the Mary's Home, St. Martha Shelter, that is more for the Indonesians, and also the Chingy Shelter. that is an emergency shelter during the COVID times, because migrant workers were discriminated and they were kicked out of their employment house any time of the night. We provide integral human formation in the shelter. Third, the psychological, medical, legal, and paralegal assistance. Yes, it is true that migrants can open up more freely with the church people and also in other government offices. They recognize the services and we get more favorable result in the immigration, in the police stations or police detentions, even in court hearings. We always see to it that one staff would accompany them also to the Philippine consulates for other assistance. Then we have the care for creation, our Mother Earth, our common home. We provide programs that they can join in organic farming, also in clean up day. They clean up the beaches, in the park or along the streets. But most of all, we train and encourage the workers to do recycling in their workplace, employment home. Then we provide also gardening in the shelter, and also we go for gardening in some elderly homes. And of course, enjoying the beauty of creation through hiking. Then we have the inter-parish, interfaith, and intercultural encounters with different groups from different nationalities and culture. So we found this an easy way of integrating all to have a harmonious relationship and cooperation. So we get a full support of the diocese also. Number 6, the closer and effective collaboration with consulates, especially the Philippine consulate and the Indonesians. And also with the government offices, the non-governmental organizations, and other international network for services, assistance, and advocacy. We are very happy that we have a very cooperative consuls in the Philippines and also in Indonesia. And then we have the International Social Service. The government, through the Social Service Department, has commissioned the ISS to take care of the asylum seekers. So they have the 12,000 asylum seekers, giving some financial assistance for their home, for the place to stay, for some other needs, and also a food voucher for their food. But that is very little compared to their actual needs. So we need also to help them. We help them in ISS and also in Mercy Center, caring for asylum seekers through counseling. Then we are also happy that we have the Good Shepherd Justice, Peace, Integrity of Creation Network, International Network. So we send them, we endorse to them our migrant workers who go back home with some problems, especially the victims of trafficking and the victims of abuse and those with serious family problem. We also enjoy the support and also the collaboration with Caritas, with the help, with staff, with pathfinders. So we are happy that when we joined the FABC, the Migrants and Refugee sessions, we got many contacts of the sisters and lay people who are involved, who can support our migrant workers who go back home. Thank you also for the Dicastery's Integral Human Development. Now let me present to you a short video of the migrant workers on the team.
Dahil walang stable job sa atin. Yung government natin sa Pilipinas gumawa ng paraan para mabigyan ng trabaho ang mga kapwa niya Pilipino dahil nahihirapan ang mga OFW. Iisipin mo, nandito ka sa Hong Kong. Akala ng pamilya mo sa Pilipinas masaya. Hindi. Minsan nakaupo tayo doon sa kanto, tapos naglagay ng karton. Minsan may mga ano. So, sana yung government sa Pilipinas gumawa ng action at gawa ng law na mabigyan ng trabaho ang bawat isa para hindi na umalis sa ibang bansa at maalagaan yung pamilya at saka po ang pamilya. Kasi isipin natin lagi minsan, hindi sa kalahatan pero maraming pamilya pong nasisira. Para sa akin, pinili ko ang Hong Kong dahil sa financial. Pero kung ako ang tatanggin, mas gusto ko magtrabaho sa Pilipinas kasi makapiling po ang aking mga mahal sa buhay.
Saya datang ke Hong Kong itu dengan tujuan saya bekerja. Saya sudah pernah pengalaman kerja di negara lain, bahasa juga sudah sedikit memahami. Di Indonesia sulit untuk mencari pekerjaan, gajinya di Hong Kong ini jauh lebih baik.
Pertama karena kebutuhan ekonomi keluarga. Dua ya, ingin cari pengalaman jauh dari keluarga agak sulit ya buat saya. Selagi saya masih kuat ya, saya masih tetap bekerja. Awalnya tidak, tapi karena sudah beradaptasi, malah nggak pulang di Hong Kong lebih memadai fasilitasnya. Cari ilmu tuh udah di sini dan terbuka luas. Saya juga ingin di Indonesia. Sekarang di Indonesia sendiri untuk lapangan pekerjaan untuk buruh migran atau pekerja migran atau orang-orang yang mau dari luar ke Indonesia tuh nggak tahu karena kebanyakan kalau tidak pegawai negeri dan apapun itu tuh harus yang udah S1 atau apa gitu, harus dituntut dulu udah berpengalaman. Sedangkan kita pengalamannya di luar negeri. Lalu apa dong yang cocok untuk kita yang ada di yang dari migrants ini?
So let me share some challenges. Number one is bridging the gap between the employer and the migrant workers for better communication, cultural understanding, and healthy relationship through fraternal dialogue and encounters. Hopefully, this will also resolve the problem of fears among the elderly employers of having a stranger in their homes. Number two, networking with sisters and others who are involved with displaced people. This is what I shared our contact outside Hong Kong. And third, the reintegration of asylum seekers, especially the single mothers, back to their own family and home country. We don't see any bright future for them in Hong Kong because as asylum seekers, they are not allowed to work legally. So they accept illegal part-time job, and sometimes they got involved with drugs and illegal works. Some learnings. While everyone has the right to choose to stay or to migrate for better life in the future, the decision-making process has to involve all members of the family, not only the father or the wife or the mothers, but also the children, even if they are still small. This will make them understand why their mother left them. And later they become co-responsible and lessen the negative impact to the family of working abroad. Second, migrants are evangelizers in their host country. Integration and active participation in the life of the parish is a great necessity and a source of great joy, faith nourishment, strength, and support. As Pope Francis says, Filipino migrants are smugglers of faith, and they always share their joy to everyone. Our cardinal-elect, Bishop Chow, had said that the Filipino migrants gives life and dynamism in the church, and hopefully the locals will be influenced by them. And thirdly, ministering to migrants and asylum seekers is a direct encounter with Christ and becomes more life-giving and effective when done as a collaborative effort of all those who are involved, especially with the migrant families too. Some words of inspiration from the Gospel of Matthew 25. And the words also from Pope Francis in his message to 109th Migrant Day. So these words are a constant admonition to see in the migrant not simply a brother or sister in difficulty, but Christ himself who knocks at our door. He also said, only by walking together, we will be able to go far and reach the common goal of our journey, what we call the synodal path. And whatever we have done, big or small, love never says it is enough. Thank you.
Thank you, sister. Thank you very much for your wonderful presentation, for shedding the light on the Filipino overseas reality. And before leaving the speech for concluding remarks to Father Lumisaki Vilakati, I would like to ask all of you to post your question. And we have a brief session of 10 minutes, like question and answer. So post your question in the chat. So we have one. Are there some concrete things that have been achieved by the UN? I think this is for all the speakers, because all of you covered. Thank you for all your message of appreciation and support. So maybe Sister Maria Santos want to reply about this?
Well, the question is very general, if it achievement by the UN, but in as far as what we as Vivat International have presented, just like what I have shared in the video, it is very important that we are connected to the ambassadors, the permanent missions, because they are actually the ones presenting it to the whole assembly, and we are getting support from them, from these countries. And when they present that to the plenum, it is there that they make decisions. Although most of the decisions or resolutions agreed in the UN are not legally binding unless it's a treaty, but it somehow makes the states accountable for what they are agreeing on in the UN. And this is where the civil society comes in also. The role of the civil society is very important, because on the ground, in the grassroots, that's where the action happens. And that is where we monitor whether these states or countries are actually doing what they have committed to do in actual situations. So there are interventions that we have made where we have gained supports from the states and that led to some decisions. I hope that answers the question.
Here's one more very broad question. What else can we do to help?
Well, it was a question there. What else can we do to help migrants? Everything that we have heard these days, it was such an inspiring reaction. But let me share with you something that I think is as important as to do things. I mean, it is very important to do for migrants, but it is also important what migrants are doing for the church in our societies, not only in terms of economical and work benefits, but especially in terms of social, cultural, building bridges, and especially for Catholic communities, they are living testimonies of the nature, Catholic nature of the church. However, even if what we can do for migrants, what migrants can do for us, what we can do with the migrants, is another question that I think is very important. What we can do, but what we want to be together. That is another important. What we want to be. What kind of society we are dreaming of, what kind of church we are dreaming of, and what kind of community we are willing to build with that. And then many things are being done, many good and realistic and real experiences, great experiences are ongoing in the field. But there is this question very important. What kind of society, what kind of community, what kind of church we want to build? And then what we are doing and what we need to do has to be in symptom of this with this method. Because sometimes our focus is only what doing, no? But we need also to imagine, to build the community and the church for today and for tomorrow.
Thank you, Father Aldo. We have a question for Andrea. While I'm grateful that the Vatican has put documents in support of migrants, how can this message reach the people in our parish to do more?
So thank you for the question. I think the answer is really simple. I mean, that's the role of the pastoral actors on the church or in parishes. When we publish these documents, we give those to the episcopal conferences, the bishop conferences, and the local churches. So this is a tool we provide, of course, as I said before, with the help of local churches, but it's a tool for the local churches to act. And so a very good occasion is the work the migrants and refugees. And our communication section every year provides on request of parishes, of organizations, a kit of tools to propose a reflection before the World Day of Migrants and Refugees at the end of September this year, 2024. So this is the role of the parishes, of the pastoral actors, and I would like to add that this is also a moment where must be the importance of the local community in encountering and in changing the stance toward migrants, refugees. So an important factor in this is to give the attention to this local community and to involve it and communicate also thanks to the words of the Holy Father and to the tools we provide.
Thank you, but I believe there is another question for you. The IDPs do not have the same rights as migrants and refugees or asylum seekers. Does the church have a willing to make an advocacy for them to the international level?
Thank you. I mean, IDPs have the rights. Their rights is not codified or not internationally codified, like the rights not to have to migrate is not internationally codified. But this right exists. They are part of the human person to tutelate, to defend their dignity. And so the church of the Holy See, we are talking about two different levels. I mean, the Holy See is willing to advocate for the IDPs. This is the tool we create. We brought to our permanent missions. We brought this tool in the international multilateral arena and organizations, and also. So there are two different levels of advocacy. So the state level advocacy of the Holy See, but there is also the level with the local authorities and with the government and civil society. So the willing is up to us.
Thank you. And this is a more general question for all our speakers. While I thank you for the excellent inputs today and in the previous day, I would like to ask you if you have any expectations for the synodal works that will take place in October in Rome.
Well, I don't think that it is a matter of expectation. It is a matter of reality. I mean, migration is not an option today. Dealing with the phenomenon of migration is not an option. It's a global phenomenon with global consequences and local consequences. But most of all, migration phenomenon concerns people, men, women, young people, youth, and families. And the synodal path, one of the characteristics, the most important characteristics of the synodal path is to engage, to involve everyone, to hear everyone. And first of all, to hear also what Pope Francis called the existential peripheries, the places and the people who are living some social problems in a vulnerable way. So if synod means all together around the table, not only to hear each other, but also to find the way together, I think that every synod path, globally or in a national level or in a local parish level, could not and should not do without migrants and refugees, everyone who is part of the community. So it is a matter of a process of hearing the necessities, hearing people, but at the same time, and probably the most important thing, is a process of building together. We are building our community together with all who are living in that place, as well as migrants and refugees.
Thank you, Father Aldo. I see there are many positive comments, but no more questions. So, how can we create a global network with those other faiths, religion, as their members are also affected by migration? maybe the sister can
I
give
can-
us some suggestions.
Yeah. Just also referring to the previous question about synodality, you know, the word at the United Nations is multilateralism. That we believe we cannot solve an issue by individually, but by involving all sectors of society, all governments. And the same as with this global network, all religions, because our global issue at present is very catastrophic, if I could use the word. And it would really call all groups, all sectors of society, all religions to really work together in harmony. We are not even using anymore in solidarity, but in harmony, because we recognize all our differences, faith, expressions, and all that, but we can be in harmony in addressing, in responding to the pressing issues in the world at present. And that is happening right now. The General Assembly is ongoing at the UN headquarters. And there are many promises, because this time, since we are at the middle of the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals, and only 15% is on track, it is really, we are in a very serious condition, and it will take all of us in harmony to respond, to make a difference, to make a change even.
Thank you, sister. And now I'm honored to give the floor to Father Domitani Vilacati, Regional Coordinator for Africa at the Pastoral for Promoting Integral Human Development. Thank you, Father.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you. On behalf of the Dicastery for Promoting Integral Human Development, and especially the Prefect, Cardinal Michael Chen, and all the superiors, I am pleased to extend my sincere thanks and gratitude to the Scalabrini International Migration Institute and the International Union of Superiors General for organizing this training course on migration under the theme, Free to Choose Whether to Migrate or Stay, Pastoral Care with Migrants and Refugees. I also express the Dicastery's sincere thanks to Sister Christy, who coordinates the work of the Catholic Sisters Project within the Dicastery, for working hard in making sure that indeed the training course does take place. The Prefect, Cardinal Michael Chen, always tells us that the mission of the Dicastery should be understood within the mission of Jesus, who came that all may have life and have it to the full. Therefore, following the lead of Jesus, who came to serve and not to be served, the officials in the Dicastery are at the service of the Holy Father and the bishops in their service to humanity. The duty of the officials is to support the activities of the local churches so that indeed the joys and the hopes, the griefs and the anxieties of the people of this age, especially those who are poor or in any way afflicted, may also be the joys and hopes, the griefs and anxieties of the church. In order to fulfill the mission entrusted to it, the Dicastery is divided into three major sections. The first section, called Listening and Dialogue, is the primary interlocutor between the local church and the Dicastery. As it were, it is the bridge between the local church and the dicastery for promoting integral human development. It is where all the regional coordinators are located. Their duty is to maintain constant contact with all who are involved in the social ministries in the church and accompany them in their work. Their task is to listen so that the dicastery can only do what it has received from the local churches. I would request of you, therefore, to be in touch with your regional coordinator, as he or she has the duty also to establish this contact with yourselves. For the second and third sections, called research and reflection, communications and restitution respectively, aim to support the work of the first section, that is listening in dialogue. Many thanks also to the speakers at this training course, who have been very good and shined a light on the plight of migrants and refugees. They have been sourced from all over the world and from various academic disciplines. This gives a picture of the beauty of our Catholic world, a mosaic in which the parts, having been assembled, form a beautiful picture. Challenges and problems need to be approached from several angles. They cannot just be a single point of view to the myriad of challenges confronting service to migrants and refugees. Each one of us needs to play his or her own role. As Pope Francis says in the 2023 message for World Day for Migrants and Refugees, I quote again, as also Sister Corazon de Mutilo quoted the same line. Only by working together will we be able to go far and reach the common goal of our journey. Thank you, dear sisters, for the beautiful work you continue doing all over the world in service to migrants and refugees. You are working tirelessly so that all may have life and have it to the full. Permit me to conclude these remarks with the prayer of the Holy Father in the message for World Day for Migrants and Refugees 2023. God, Father Almighty, grant us the grace to work tirelessly for justice, solidarity, and peace, so that all your children may enjoy the freedom to choose whether to migrate or to stay. Grant us the courage to denounce all the horrors of our world and to combat every injustice that mars the beauty of your children and the harmony of our common home. Sustain us by the power of your Spirit, so that we can reflect your tender love to every migrant whom you place in our path, and to spread in our hearts and in every situation the culture of encounter and of care. Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Grazie. Siyabonga.
Thank you, Father, for your words. And allow me to share a few words of conclusion to this course organized in preparation for the World Day of Migrants and Refugees to be celebrated on Sunday. So, as you understood already from all the readings, this has been a collective task, and also on behalf of CIMI, I want to express our deepest gratitude to the Dicastery for promoting integral human development. They promoted the course, for staff here in their facilities, and provide technical assistance. To Sister Christy for help and support. Thank you also to Sister Carmen and Sister Perez from the International Union of Superiors General, WIS, and the Communication Office of WIS for the constant collaboration in organizing sports. Of course, a special thanks go to our speakers who participated, sharing their knowledge and expertise. Migrations are more than movements from one place to another. And as we have learned, they are related to cultural, social, and political transformations and to continuous reshaping of social, religious, and personal frontiers and boundaries. As they have the capacity to transform and establish identities, migrants and refugees raise very basic questions simply by being here among us, the receiving societies. During these days of formation, we have seen that this phenomenon is, however, not a novelty, but a historical fact inherent in the logical life of societies in different eras. The media and political debate around the world are often caught up in what seems to be a collective amnesia, forgetting the past and forging narratives often based on fear, with tones oriented to more to emergency and exceptional nature of migration phenomenon, that the awareness of its structurality and the need to manage it as an ordinary element of society. Instead, we have seen how a different narrative is possible and how to constructively narrate migration. An important reference continues to be the action and magisterium of Francis and the importance of the theme of integral human development. In this sense, integral human development also passes through mental health, as there is no mental health without, there is no health without mental health. So integral health, 360 degrees. The church has always been involved in human, anthropological, and social challenges, and has always borne the burden of suffering, but also the hopes of men and women of different times and cultures. As Father Aldo said, the challenge the church has is to bring out the opportunities that the encounter with the other brings, and to make the intercultural dimension the way to live the Catholicity of the church. With this regard, our speakers underline the centrality of migration and its complexity within the scriptures, the inner spiritual meaning of the contemporary migration in dialogue with theological traditions and the teaching of the church. They invited us to read the Bible with migrants and refugees and to walk with them, taking action and full responsibility in care of our brothers and sisters uprooted from their homes. Moreover, we have learned more about the international legal framework and instruments in human rights related to migration and asylum seeking, the importance of advocacy and the potential of youth and faith-based organizations in advocating for respecting of migrants and refugees' rights. Finally, today, we have seen pastoral orientation for care of migrants and refugees as a tool offering concrete suggestions and guidance for action, rooted in the church teaching and its experience. And indeed, we have finished with some best practice, effective example of putting the pastoral guidance into practice. Religious life has a fundamental role to play in this, not only by the generous and proactive service it offers, but also by the witness it lives, that there is no mission without migration. During these days of listening, learning, discussing, and reflecting together on these issues, all of great relevance to the global agenda, we have understood, I would say we have confirmed, the utmost importance of training and lifelong learning in the accompaniment of migrants and refugees, as well as internally displaced persons, victims of trafficking, seafarers, and many more of people on the move. The Scalabrini International Migration Institute for mission is the academic and professional education of scholars, researchers, professionals, both religious and lay people, and of those who are engaged in the front line of human mobility. CIMI addresses the phenomenon of human mobility through a multidisciplinary approach, an interdisciplinary approach that further deepens and coordinates the many interpretations of both pastoral, theological, human, and social sciences, as well as of national and international institutional approach to this issue. CIMI does it by offering a wide range of learning and training programs, such as the program we are sharing today, licentiate also and doctorate in pastoral theology of human mobility at the Faculty of Theology at the Pastoral at the Pontificia Urbaniana University. And as we already mentioned it several times, the online diploma in pastoral care of human mobility. Thanks to this unique approach, the online diploma gives participants all over the world, regardless their time zone and stability of their connection, the possibility to learn and pursue their studies along with their work and activities, enabling them to develop action plans to build communities capable of welcoming, protecting, and promoting and integrating migrants and refugees. This is part of the broader perspective of responding to the request of global training program aiming at promoting integral Christian vision of human mobility in every country. So I hope that for all of you, these days have been an opportunity to deepen your knowledge or to simply get closer to this topic, to reflect and to take action, and to carry with you the knowledge and apply it in your daily service. This is why my final thanks goes to all of you sisters, to your service, to the service you carry on with faith and passion every day. Thank you very much. So thank you to everyone who participated, and we hope to see you for the next event. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.